Okay, let's unpack this. The deep human pursuit of advanced, often secret technology frequently collides with the mystical, the occult, and the truly inexplicable.
Definitely. And our subject today sits exactly at that collision point. We've pulled together a stack of sources that takes you on a bit of a wild ride. We're talking everything from, detailed metallurgical reports on fragments of weird materials like the supposed Roswell debris,
Right.
all the way through official NASA analyses of UAPs, and even historical texts on occult philosophy. It's quite a mix.
So our mission in this deep dive really is to trace that thread, connecting alleged pieces of, let's say, alien hardware back through the kind of shady history of military science. And also that philosophical search for superhuman knowledge. We want to try and isolate what might be genuinely anomalous from all the noise, the human deception, the fantasy, the ambition.
Okay, so let's start with the hard science bit, or maybe the hard mystery part. We begin with the alleged Roswell fragment. This is the core physical enigma that's fueled, well, decades of speculation.
Right. The story goes that metallurgists who supposedly analyzed this layered material, they claim they just couldn't find it anywhere. Not in national labs, not in published papers.
Exactly. It simply wasn't known aerospace tech at that time, according to those accounts.
And the structure itself sounds specific.
Oh, very specific. The structure is key here. We're talking about 26 alternating layers. You've got layers of dark bismuth, just microns thin.
Wow.
Alternating with a much thicker layer, maybe 100 to 200 microns, of a silver-magnesium-zinc alloy. The sheer precision and that combination of elements, it immediately raised red flags for the people looking at it.
Okay, bismuth. That's diamagnetic, right? And magnesium is paramagnetic. If you're not familiar, that means they have sort of opposing magnetic properties.
That specific pairing, the opposing magnetic materials, that's critical. It's what drove the initial speculation that maybe this material was engineered for magnetic shielding, or possibly even gravity shielding. Or maybe as some kind of exotic waveguide for really high-frequency radio waves, terahertz waves. That pairing, diamagnetic, paramagnetic layer like that, it just suggested an intentional, very advanced purpose.
Okay, so contrast that deep material mystery with how things are being looked at now.
Yeah.
The sort of formal scientific approach to UAPs, unidentified anomalous phenomena.
Right. NASA is now contributing to UAP studies. It's a big shift. It helps reduce the stigma around reporting these things.
Sure.
And it brings serious computing power to the problem. They're working within a whole-of-government framework, using existing, think they're Earth-observing satellites and applying advanced analysis like AI and machine learning.
Trying to find patterns in stuff that was maybe dismissed before.
Exactly. Trying to find patterns in what's historically been just anecdote or, blurry videos.
But the scientific baseline here is crucial, isn't it?
Yeah.
The principle they stick to is pretty straightforward.
Absolutely. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. That's the grounding principle. And they emphasize that. Historically, phenomena that seemed totally baffling. Well, they eventually fell under the scope of natural science. Think about Jocelyn Bell Burnell discovering pulsars.
Oh, right. The LGM signals.
Yeah, little green men. Those perfectly regular pulses made researchers initially think, could this be artificial? But no, turned out to be rapidly rotating neutron stars. The job of science is to exhaust every single known natural explanation first.
But here's a question. When your baseline is that skeptical, is there a risk you might dismiss an actual breakthrough just because it doesn't fit the current model? Does that rigorous skepticism sometimes, blind us?
That's a really important point.
Yeah.
But the methodology kind of demands that rigor. The lesson learned from history, I guess, is that extraterrestrial life has to be the hypothesis of last resort.
Okay.
The one you only turn to after you've eliminated all known natural possibilities and, crucially, all human-made possibilities. And the problem is, human-made possibilities definitely include deliberate high-stakes deception.
Which brings us neatly to the narrators, the people who claim they've seen the tech behind these mysteries. And we probably have to start with maybe the most famous and definitely controversial figure in the UFO world, Bob Lazar.
Ah, Lazar, yes. He claimed he worked at S4, that secret base near Area 51, right? And that he was involved in reverse engineering extraterrestrial craft. His story is incredibly detailed, especially about the propulsion physics.
He talked about element 115. which we now know is muscovium, and it's super unstable. But he claimed a stable isotope was the key.
That was his claim, yeah. A stable isotope of element 115. He said it was used to produce propulsion by generating these phase-shifted electromagnetic waves that could actually manipulate and distort space-time around the craft.
It sounds very science fiction, very compelling.
It is a compelling, high-concept theory, but what's really striking is how his story took off despite, well, massive holes in his personal credibility.
Right, his claims about being a physicist at Los Alamos?
Fabricated. Turns out he was actually a technician working for a contractor firm. Not quite the same thing. And then there were the criminal convictions, involvement in a prostitution ring, selling illegal chemicals.
Yet the story gained traction anyway. It really shows the power of a good narrative, doesn't it? People were willing to overlook the dodgy background because the physics he described sounded so specific, so alluring.
And what's fascinating, tying it back, is how his description of the craft's construction sort of echoes the metallurgical stuff we discussed earlier.
How so?
Well, the rumored Fluxliner craft supposedly used these capacitor plates, and they were allegedly made of a foil lamination of a Dow chemical alloy, mostly magnesium and zinc bonded together with molten bismuth.
Wait, magnesium, zinc, and bismuth. Those are the exact materials from the alleged Roswell crash fragment analysis.
Exactly. The same components rumored to form the core anti-gravity structure of these crafts, according to Lazar's descriptions, or at least the rumors surrounding them. It's a connection.
Okay, this is where the stack of sources takes a sharp turn, directly from, like, classified metallurgy reports to ceremonial magic.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Jack Parsons.
Right. Here's where that pursuit of extreme technology intersects completely with the pursuit of, let's say, spiritual transformation.
So Parsons was a brilliant rocket scientist, co-founder of JPL.
Absolutely. A key figure in that Caltech team that became the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Hugely important for rocketry. Yet at the same time, he was a dedicated ceremonial magician, a serious follower of Thelema, the philosophical path laid out by Aleister Crowley.
Thelema, the core idea is discovering your true will, right?
Yeah.
Your individual divine purpose.
That's the heart of it. But achieving this, in their view, meant radical transformation. Parsons believed reaching your maximum potential required actively destroying the self-imposed psychological barriers holding you back. Fears, insecurities.
Sounds intense.
It is. And this whole search for ultimate power and transformation, it's structured in occult philosophy using this formula. IAO, Isis, Apophis, Osiris.
Okay, break that down.
So, Isis represents the initial state, maybe pleasure, ease, the status quo. Apophis is the necessary destruction, the struggle, the despair, the chaos that burns away the old self. And Osiris is the final rebirth, emerging into a superior state of existence. Parsons was actively seeking that superior existence through both his rocketry and his rituals.
And he wasn't alone in having this kind of dual interest.
Not historically, no. The line between empirical science and the, let's call it supernatural, was much blurrier in the past. Think Isaac Newton, we revere him for gravity, calculus. But he spent huge amounts of time practicing alchemy, trying to achieve material transformation.
Right, transmutation.
Yeah, or Robert Boyle, another science giant, investigating things like second sight. It shows that this drive, this curiosity, didn't always stick to neat categories.
But the pursuit of advanced technology wasn't just mystical or blurred. Sometimes it was morally, well, ambiguous in the extreme. Which brings us to Operation Paperclip.
Yeah, Paperclip. This was the U.S. government essentially prioritizing technological necessity over morality post-World War II.
How so?
Well, the U.S. was desperate to get a military and space advantage over the Soviets, especially after Sputnik created such a panic. And this fight, this perceived necessity, meant bringing hundreds of Nazi scientists over to America.
And we're not just talking about a few neutral engineers here, are we? The source material mentions some pretty severe examples.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking documented war criminals, people like Dr. Friedrich Hoffmann, who performed deadly chemical experiments on concentration camp inmates. He later worked for the CIA researching psychoactive agents.
That's chilling.
And Otto Ambros, a chemist who co-discovered sarin gas, convicted of war crimes, but still ended up working for U.S. companies and even the Department of Energy afterwards. Even Wernher von Braun, the face of the U.S. space program.
Wirecard genius.
His involvement with the Nazi regime, potentially with forced labor, was largely concealed or downplayed because his scientific contribution was seen as so vital. There was a profound moral vacuum at the heart of that pursuit of super technology. Morality was basically sacrificed for strategic advantage.
A real ends justify the means situation. Okay, so we've seen potential government deception or moral compromise. Now let's shift to the cultural side, the kind of pollution that surrounds this whole topic. Because if the government was compromising morality, maybe the public was sometimes compromising reality for, I don't know, wish fulfillment. Let's talk about the Nordic aliens trope.
Right, the Nordic archetype. Tall, blonde, very human-like. They really emerged in the 1950s contactee movement, often as a contrast to the gray aliens, who tend to be associated with more frightening abduction scenarios.
So the Nordics were the friendly ones.
Generally, yes. Figures like Orthon, who George Adamski claimed contact with, they focused on direct communication, delivering these spiritual and philosophical messages, warnings about nuclear war, pleas for environmental protection, talk about consciousness evolution.
And these benevolent figures, where did that idea even come from?
Well, you can trace roots back to late 19th century theosophy, concepts like ascended masters and evolving root races. It essentially gave a cosmic gloss to what was already a kind of spiritual elite concept floating around on Earth. Star seeds, that kind of thing.
But the actual evidence offered by these contactees, it often doesn't hold up, does it?
Not usually, no. Once you scrutinize it, it often falls apart pretty spectacularly. Take Billy Meyer, famous for claiming contact with Pleiadian Nordics. He produced hundreds of photos, videos.
Yeah, I've seen some of those. The ships look kind of model-like.
Well, his ex-wife eventually stated publicly that he made the spaceship models himself using household items, things like trash can lids, apparently.
Seriously,
Oh.
trash can lids. And what about the photos he claimed were of extraterrestrial women?
Ah, yes. Those were pretty conclusively identified as members of the Golbels.
The singers. From the Dean Martin show.
The very same. It's almost comical, but that pattern of fabricated evidence, deliberate hoaxes, it just pollutes the entire field, makes it incredibly difficult to isolate any potentially genuine anomalies. You have to be just as skeptical of the human tendency towards awe, exaggeration, and outright fibbing.
And that tendency extends backward in time, too, right? We should probably address the whole ancient aliens idea that complex ancient structures must require alien intervention. We've looked at potential government lies, contactee lies. Now we need to tackle misplaced awe.
Correct. The sheer complexity of some ancient structures is often cited as proof of extraterrestrial help. But the more plausible explanation usually lies in human ingenuity, master craftspeople, and maybe the loss of ancient human technologies or techniques, not necessarily aliens.
Like Pumapunku in Bolivia.
Yeah.
Those incredibly precise, complex H-blocks cut into dense rock.
Exactly. Stunning work, no doubt. But it's arguably within the bounds of what dedicated, highly skilled human artisans could achieve, perhaps with tools or methods we've forgotten. Not necessarily laser beams from space.
Or the Giza pyramids. People always point to them.
And yet, we have workable human theories involving quarrying stone nearby, transporting it via the Nile River during flood season, and using ramps and levers for elevation. Herodotus even recorded descriptions of lever systems being used. It doesn't require anti-gravity.
What about Göbekli Tepe in Turkey? Those massive T-shaped pillars, like 10 tons each, carved before agriculture.
That one's fascinating because it is so early and monumental. But the best explanation currently points towards it being a sanctuary, a place for periodic gatherings of hunter-gatherer groups. The evidence of feasting and animal sacrifice suggests intense religious devotion could have motivated that massive collaborative construction effort over centuries. Again, human drivers, not alien ones.
Okay, so wrapping this all up.
Yeah.
What does it mean when we synthesize this whole stack of sources? We seem to have these genuinely anomalous data points, that strange layered metal from Roswell, maybe some credible military sightings like Gordon Cooper's Green Orb.
Right, things that are harder to dismiss out of hand.
Sitting right alongside this heavily polluted information space.
Exactly. You've got Lazar's pretty clear fabrications, the blatant contactee hoaxes like Meyer's gold ends, and then the deliberate, severe moral compromises made by governments chasing technology like Operation Paperclip. The verifiable mystery, if there is one, is just wrapped up in layer after layer of intentional deception, wishful thinking, and self-aggrandizing spiritual narratives.
So this deep dive, it really reveals that the quest for ultimate power, whether it's physical power like advanced flight or spiritual power like Parsons sought, it seems to consistently invite either trickery or profound moral sacrifice, or both.
Which brings us right back to that occult formula we mentioned with Jack Parsons. IAO Isis, Apophis Osiris. You look at the history of advanced flight, and it is tied to figures who sought spiritual transformation, sometimes through that destructive apophysis phase.
Leading to a hoped-for Osiris's rebirth.
And it's tied to those who committed unspeakable horrors in the name of progress, like the paperclip scientists.
So the ultimate breakthrough, whether it's scientific or spiritual, is often framed as needing that complete surrender, that transformation, maybe the destruction of the old paradigm or the old self. The question for you listening is that pursuit of transformative superhuman power inherently dangerous? And is a potentially terrifying descent into that chaotic apophysis stage the only way to achieve truly superior knowledge or existence?